If you've been a fan of Helluva Boss or Hazbin Hotel for a while, you're probably aware of the Hazbin Hatedom. Viv has always had a hatedom ever since she made Zoophobia way back in 2012. However, with the recent release of Helluva Boss Season 2, Episode 4, the hate for the shows and fanbase has risen to what I'd consider an all-time high, which was only ever seen back when the Hazbin Hotel pilot came out in 2019. In this video, I'm going to explain what the hatedom is, why it exists, how it ties into Vivziepop shows, and then lastly give my thoughts on some of the issues with it. So before we go in depth, it's important to understand what the Hazbin Hatedom is. The Hazbin Hatedom is pretty self-explanatory, but it broadly refers to the hate for Helluva Boss and Hazbin Hotel. It's important to separate criticism from hate. Criticism is just providing issues with the shows, such as pointing out specific plot points, and that's completely fine. However, the issue is when statements are hateful in nature. As I will continue to discuss in the rest of the video, there's multiple reasons as to why Vivziepop and her shows are hated so much. The first reason that Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss receive such heavy criticism is because of their creator, Vivziepop. I've covered Vivzi and her past controversies extensively on my channel, but basically there's a variety of dramas or controversies Viv has been involved with over time. Since there's so many, people automatically assume that they're true and don't bother to do any research. This is especially problematic on sites like Twitter or Tumblr, where people create long threads listing everything bad Viv has done. However, if you analyse some of these dramas with a finer lens, you will realise that the majority of them are nothing burgers. I don't think Viv is a flawless person, and she's definitely made some mistakes over the years. However, the statements people say about her, the shows, or the community as a whole are vile. On Twitter, for example, people are unable to separate art from artist. As a result of this, if you support or watch Hazbin Hotel or Helluva Boss, many people will automatically assume you're a bad person. One common trend is to automatically block supporters of the shows regardless of their opinions. I've had this happen to me many times, and anytime a new episode comes out, people will repost all of Vivzi's old dramas in an effort to bring negative publicity to the shows. One example I saw was a tweet saying not to interact with them if you support Vivziepop. When someone countered their tweet by pointing out most of the controversies were debunked, the original poster replied with, "I don't care if they're fake or not, I don't like her at all. Also, if you're a supporter, I'll block you." This example just perfectly articulates the issue. Rather than do research on the topic or watch a 30-minute video that debunks everything, people would rather do tweets bashing Viv or the show and block any fans who dare challenge them. If you have a Hazbin or Helluva Boss profile picture, people will point that out as a bad thing and call you a Vivziepop dick rider. It's basically a catch-22, where if you stand back and let these people spread false garbage, then it just gets spread to a wider audience. However, if you counter and debunk their claims, you'll get dogpiled and labelled a Vivziepop dick rider. It's bizarre. The term Hazbin Hatedom is obviously coined after Vivziepop's largest show, Hazbin Hotel. Any long-time viewers will be well aware of how things were when the pilot came out, but if you aren't, I'll give you a rundown. When the Hazbin pilot came out in November 2019, it opened the door to the Helluverse and introduced an entirely new audience to Vivziepop and her content. Hazbin Hotel had been worked on for many years prior to its release, and fans were excited. So when it finally came out, there was a huge wave of excitement and hype surrounding the project. Unfortunately, when anything gets traction, there will always be a number of individuals that will push back against it. The pilot wasn't perfect and did have some flaws. However, discourse surrounding it quickly turned sour, especially on sites like Twitter. For every fair criticism posted, there would be 3 or 4 nonsense ones, ranging from calling the show homophobic for certain jokes, anti-Semitic because of specific character designs, or just labelling the entire thing as problematic. At the same time, Vivzi's old past was dug up again, with users posting long threads detailing everything she had done. This was the real start of the hatedom, because Hazbin Hotel went from being praised as a successful, trend-setting adult animated pilot to becoming a punching bag on sites like Twitter. This reputation clung to the show and continues to this day. Anytime new content was posted, such as the Addict music video, the show being picked up by A24, or the release of new sneak peeks and trailers, the negative perception and Vivzi's past dramas loom over the project like a shadow. Hot off the success of Hazbin Hotel, Vivzi started work on another adult animated comedy series. This one, titled Helluva Boss, focused on a different group of characters, but in the same universe as Hazbin Hotel. This show served the purpose of developing the lore and story of the Hazbin Hotel universe, while simultaneously keeping fans happy while Hazbin Hotel was in development. Similarly to Hazbin, Helluva Boss was heralded as another fantastic piece of indie content. Helluva Boss set the bar high in terms of quality, and as a result, many other indie animated shows that came out after, such as Lackadaisy, Satina, and Farfetch'd are compared to it regularly. As Helluva Boss progressed, fans fell in love with the setting and characters. It was similar to Hazbin, but offered a different take on the universe. It also featured fantastic voice work from actors like Richard Horvitz and Brandon Rogers. The first bump in the road, however, was after part 1 of the season 1 finale. This episode, I can tell you firsthand, was the peak of the series in terms of popularity. Anything uploaded around the time of the release would get millions of views, and the fandom was at peak popularity. This episode was the first one where some people would begin to exit the show, however. Episode 7 had a heavy focus on the relationship of Stolas and Blitz. As a result, some fans worried the show was taking a turn into a direction they weren't happy with. As a result, some left. To make matters worse, episode 7 was the first part of a 2-part finale. The second part was meant to release a couple months after. However, this wait turned from days, to weeks, to months, to years. It's 2023 and the last episode hasn't been released. Vivzie and the team posted an update informing fans that the episode was postponed due to legal issues. They're not able to discuss exactly why the episode was delayed, but they promised fans it'll be released whenever they can. After this announcement, some fans turned on the series and blamed Spindle and Vivzie for poor planning. Many left as a result, and the fandom took a hit in popularity. Since there was a 7-month gap between the release of the Season 2 trailer and the release of Season 2 Episode 1, this led to a max exodus. Content creators especially left the series, and this is why I'm one of the few channels to still produce content on the shows. All the other ones with sizable audiences quit YouTube. This large gap also severely damaged the performance of any media related to the show in the YouTube algorithm. I can tell you from first-hand experience that anything released around the release of the Season 1 finale would do fantastic and get millions of impressions, whereas any content uploaded now would get about a quarter of that. Many fans have also pointed out that the views have declined slowly on each episode as the series has progressed. Personally, I think this has to do with the YouTube algorithm not promoting the stuff as much as it used to. In July 2022, episode 1 of season 2 was released. With the release of this episode, more videos would be posted that would critique the episode. Fans would also start to discuss certain plot points within the show, such as many labelling Blitz and Stolas' meeting as a retcon, along with a change in Stella's personality. Although this episode was broadly well received, it was the first episode to be criticised on a significant scale, and this trend would continue for the rest of Season 2. Season 2 Episode 2 would come out, and this episode would once again contain several issues. I pointed these out in my review of the episode, but the main ones consisted of tonal inconsistencies, confusing plot points, and specific characters getting sidelined. I thought overall the episode was good, but it was a missed opportunity. Season 2 Episode 3 would continue this trend. I personally enjoyed this episode more than the last, however the same myriad of issues would reappear. Confusing tone shifts, character criticisms, and the introduction of yet another villain would lead many to criticise this episode. This leads us to the release of the most recent episode, Season 2 Episode 4 Western Energy. I liked this episode and I thought it made some steps in the right direction. However, once again it was heavily criticised. Western Energy inherited some of the issues Hazbin Hotel had when it came out, where it was torn to pieces on sites like Twitter. Just like what happened with Hazbin, any discourse surrounding the episode was tainted by people bringing up Vivzie's past dramas and controversies. This led to a toxic atmosphere where fans were clearly fed up with the constant hate on the show. However, similarly, any genuine, thoughtful criticism of the episode was overshadowed by the mob of people bashing Vivziepop, the show, or fans. If we were to take a look at Season 2 Episode 1, it caused people to raise their eyebrows at the series. Episode 2 was when the bombs were put down, Episode 3 lit the fuse, and Episode 4 was when they exploded. The atmosphere surrounding the show had hit the melting point, and criticism for the show was at an all-time high. With the history of the hatedom surrounding Vivzie and her two shows out of the way, I think it's time to get into my thoughts on it all. The first thing that's worth addressing is the atmosphere surrounding criticism of the two shows. One common opinion I've seen is that the Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss community can't take criticism. I personally disagree with this take, especially since criticism occurs in any piece of media, especially one which is on the internet. Unfortunately, just like in many other shows, there exists a subsection of the community which are particularly abrasive towards any criticism. This was conveyed the other week when another YouTuber, Cartoonshi, did a review criticising the show. Although I don't agree with everything mentioned in the video, especially the sections related to Vivzie's Twitter, after the video, Cartoonshi received heavy backlash, and in particular harassment from a small group of deranged Twitter users. This was obviously appalling behaviour, and you can easily engage with discussion around the show without resorting to harassment or brigading on Twitter. It's unfortunate situations like this which damages the overall reputation of the community and leads to people labelling it as unable to take criticism. These bad faith individuals ruin it for everyone, basically. Another thing worth mentioning is the prevalence of headcanons within both shows. Since the shows have been in development for so long, and with the long wait between episodes, fans have created their own lore or theories in their head. When the episodes eventually come out and obviously don't follow what these viewers have expected, they get angry and bash the writers or the team. One example of this, which I mentioned in previous videos, was the Fastice-Alistair situation. Basically, a couple years ago, one of the most popular ships was Alistair and Charlie. Eventually, one of the past spindle artists confirmed that Alistair was asexual. After this news, Charlie-Alistair shippers had a complete meltdown that their headcanon was shattered, and as a result, they harassed Fastice and Vivziepop. This situation conveys exactly the issues with headcanons. Although sometimes the story may go in directions we don't like, we have to provide constructive feedback and not get toxic. Spindlehorse shouldn't have to adhere to your headcanons. It's their story and they can do what they want. I can understand why fans are defensive towards criticism, especially when, at least on Twitter, a significant amount of the criticism is not actually criticism, but just hate disguised as such. Overall, I think fans are receptive to criticism and are able to debate and discuss these ideas. On the other hand, however, on sites like Twitter, there is a lot of people that rally behind a vocal minority and boost hateful tweets without providing context. One example was when an out-of-context clip of Blitz was shared on Twitter. The clip showed Blitz swearing, and as a result, Twitter users wrote the show off as a Family Guy or South Park clone with terrible jokes. Seeing these tweets with 30k likes gives off the atmosphere that everyone hates the show. However, in reality, it's just a vocal minority tweeting this stuff, and then you have a bunch of sheep liking whatever is on their Twitter feed without thinking, which inflates the numbers and makes it look like the show is hated by everyone when it isn't. One example of the hate I saw was when a friend of mine, Maria, did a positive tweet about the show on Twitter. In her tweet she said, "What's up with all the negative videos about Helluva Boss? Let's change that. Here's a funny Blitzo gif." Immediately after, she was sent a clip from Toy Story that basically told her to hang herself. Twitter staff perceived this as hateful conduct and deleted it, thankfully. This situation perfectly demonstrates how unhinged some of the people bashing the show are. If you support the show or are a fan, you'll get added to block lists or bashed repeatedly. Similarly, if you give fair criticism, it will get thrown out the window because, like with anything, the vocal minority will give bad faith arguments that overshadow the fair ones. There's also a problem where people will jump onto constructive feedback and berate them instead of engaging peacefully. I think it's a two-way street. I feel like fans as a whole should be a bit more fair to criticism, especially if they're just giving their opinions and providing constructive feedback. On the flip side, I feel like fans are given too much hate just for liking a show. You shouldn't be berated or told to end your life because of a tweet about an animated show. So yeah, that's my thoughts and a bit of backstory surrounding the Hazbin Hatedom. I was originally going to make this video back in April, but was a little busy with university assignments and other videos that needed done. However, with the recent release of the episode and the criticism surrounding it, I thought it was important to do a video about it. Vivziepop and her shows have always gotten a disproportionate amount of hate, even when the criticism has some valid aspects. I hope that in the future, the atmosphere relaxes a bit and everyone calms down a little. I'm not holding my breath though. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.